Good morning. Welcome to Plugged In. We have a story about David right after this. Well, we're glad that you're back with us. It is Monday. If you want to get your Bibles ready in the Old Testament, 1 Samuel chapter 17, we'll get there. Just a recap. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about King Saul finally gives in and allows for David to talk him into letting David go to fight Goliath, the Philistine. And King Saul has put his armor on David. But if you recall, I told the story about where David said, I can't wear this. It's not me. He had to go as himself, and that was sort of the challenge. So we're going to pick up there here in just a few moments. I'm going to read a story that, again, if you've grown up in church, it's all too familiar. But I want to open it with this illustration because David had a choice of his attitude of how he went into this. In fact, he had the right attitude, and he was being somewhat, you might say, forced to take it upon himself to do this, to go up against Goliath because of what the other Israelites, including his brothers, would not do. So I want to illustrate it by way of an acronym. You know, usually an acronym is like a word, and the letters in that word create other words, and or they might help us or challenge us in some aspect of our life. When I'm talking about prayer, I might use the acronym PUSH. Pray until something happens. Okay? Just the idea of don't ever give up. Just keep praying, keep praying, keep praying. And so as we go into this text, I can think of two acronyms. They're the same word, it's just how we look at it. The word is fear, F-E-A-R. But here's one meaning for the word fear. Forget everything and run. Now that's what the Israelites had been doing. Even if they weren't literally running from Goliath and the other Philistines, that's what the Israelites were doing in their minds because they just could not go against this giant. They just felt so much fear. And I think a lot of times we don't live our life to the fullest because we look at fear in that aspect of, I'm going to forget everything and I'm going to run. I'm not going to have anything to do with this. I can't face it. But there's another way to look at fear, F-E-A-R, and that is this: face everything and rise. Face everything and rise. Let me read for you a story. Let's see if you can figure out which one best fits David. Picking up verse 41. Meanwhile, the Philistine, that is Goliath, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over, and he saw that he was a little more than a boy, glowing with health and handsome, and he despised him. And he said to David, am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. Come here, he said, and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals. David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with a sword and a javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel." Skipping down to verse 43, or 48, excuse me. As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly toward the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag, taking out a stone, he slung it, and he struck the Philistine on the forehead. And the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down on the ground. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine, and he killed him. And as you later read, he goes and he follows through. He cuts Goliath's head off. Which one of those fears best describes David? I think face everything and rise. That was one of those moments in which David was victorious. David was a great man of faith. He was a man after God's own heart. But David also had his moments where he failed. And he allowed for his positions to cause him to make poor decisions. My challenge for you today is this. When you're faced with something, look at it in the way that David did Goliath. You can be like the rest of his brothers and the Israelites, and you can just forget whatever you're looking at and run, and you're not going to get much credit. David, by the way, doesn't take the credit for this. All the credit is given to God because he's the one that brought the victory. So when you're facing something, don't try to face it alone. Face it in the name of God. Face everything and rise. Thank you again for joining us this week. We'll be back next Monday with another story from the Old Testament, from some Old Testament heroes, another issue of Plugged In.